Hi, I'm James Bruce, you're watching MakeUseOf.com reviews, and in today's video I'll explain why I think the Synology DS418play is the best value network attached storage device and media server for your home network. This is the DS418play, the latest in the Play series of storage devices from Synology. Now, this is an independent device that sits on your network and serves up its storage capacity to any and all devices on your network. Not only that, but it uses an Intel CPU, so you get full hardware video transcoding support, making it absolutely ideal to run as a Plex media server. This is a network-attached storage device suitable for any and all levels of user, whether you're a home networking beginner looking to expand your storage slowly, or a pro user looking to really dig into the advanced features. It retails for around $430 for the bare device, not including any drives, so you'll need to factor that in too. At a time when we have more downloaded media and gadgets producing high quality photos than ever before, having a reliable backup for all of that data has never been more important. Yet for some reason, a lot of people don't realize that a network attached storage device is a thing. Most people will just back up their data onto a little USB key or an external hard drive, which then ends up floating around a drawer and inevitably breaks when you go to recover your data from it 5 years later. So I'm here to tell you that a network attached storage device is absolutely something that you should consider. Moreover, the Synology DS418play should probably be your first choice. So let's talk about specs and design. The chassis is the same as the higher end Synology DS918 Plus model. A very sleek black box with all 4 trays lockable but accessible from the front panel. Either 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch drives can be installed, and you'll only need screws for the latter. 3.5 inch drives can just be slotted in, and there are some plastic clips. Around the back you'll find dual gigabit Ethernet ports for link bonding. Other than that, there's a single USB 3 port and the 5-pin DIN power plug. The power brick is external, and that's the only thing I don't like about this or the older 413J model that I've been using. I'd rather the device itself was ever so slightly bigger at the back and didn't have an external power brick, but that's such a minor complaint. Internally, you've got an Intel Celeron J3355 clocked at 2 GHz with a burst motor of 2.5 GHz. It's equipped with 2 GB of RAM, though that is upgradable to 6 GB with the optional $100 memory upgrade. The system also supports AES-NI hardware encryption, uses the new B-tree file system or BTRFS by default, the upshot of which is your data is basically more secure and you get instant server-side file copies. And more importantly, it has support for hardware video transcoding of 4K video streams. And that hardware video acceleration is fully supported by Plex Media Server. So from a novice user's perspective, it's worth explaining some of the fundamental advantages that I think Synology specifically offers in this market. The first is the Synology Hybrid RAID mode. So a RAID system is a redundant array of interconnected drives and typically means that you have a certain amount of drive redundancy, meaning that if any of the drives fail, well, you can just pull it out, replace it with another one, and rebuild the array. It'll carry on working and you won't have lost any data at all. The first complication for new users with a RAID system is typically that there are 4 or 5 different modes to set up, and it's not entirely clear which one you're going to want. The second annoyance I have with RAID systems is that you have to upgrade all of the drives at once or in pairs. The beauty of Synology's hybrid RAID mode is that you don't have to choose a mode. It's Synology Hybrid RAID and it just works. It gives you a one drive data redundancy. But the other significant benefit is that you can add in any size drives that you want and it will intelligently choose how to best allocate data, still keeping everything secure. Under the surface, it essentially does this by creating a number of different RAID arrays and then combining them so you only see one. So instead of having to start out by buying 4 1TB drives, you can put your old 250GB one in, your 500GB, maybe 2 1TB drives. And the Synology Hybrid RAID will intelligently make use of that space, giving you the maximum amount you can possibly get while still maintaining a one drive redundancy. What this means is that the Synology DS418play can grow with you as your storage needs expand, and it grows very simply. I think I started with this 413J, I had just 2 1TB drives. And over the years, I've expanded that until the point now at which it's been maxed out with four 4TB drives. At any point that you want to expand, just pull out the smallest drive and replace it with one that's larger. Then click the button to rebuild the array. It's as simple as that. It'll automatically rebalance things and keep your data secure. The second thing that's unique to Synology devices is the Disk Station Manager, or DSM. That's the operating system that the device runs. You access it through a web interface and it really looks good. What's more important though is that it's incredibly easy to navigate, understand, and to configure things. You should be seeing a screencast of it now. It's from here that you configure the system, check on the health of your drives, and install new software packages. It even has a complete windowing system with little widgets on the right-hand side to help you keep tabs on things, and a full system file search. It all looks very familiar, it's ridiculously simple to use, and in case you are confused about something, the built-in help system and Synology's massive knowledge base really do explain everything. You also get a free Quick Connect URL that you can set up and lets you access your storage and the Disk Station Manager from anywhere in the world if you want. DSM is just in a class of its own compared to the other brands, and some other manufacturers just have a primitive looking web interface that looks like it was made back in the 90s, and it's really difficult to navigate those. I always come back to Synology and breathe a sigh of relief. So let's talk briefly about performance. I should note I don't have a lab testing procedure here, and the comparisons I've done are from this newer device with faster drives compared to this 4.5-year-old device that I already own with slower drives that's probably become a bit sluggish over the years as I installed new software. I have tried to make the test as equal as possible. I checked the cables weren't causing any speed difference by repeating the tests with the cables swapped, no difference. I also uninstalled as much server software as I could from here before running the tests, though obviously I don't want to reformat my 20 terabytes of data that are on here. But I have tried to test in as much as what a real-world example might be. So the speeds that I got for the DS418play should be roughly what you're going to get at home as well. In both cases, I tested using the Samba protocol. It does also support NFS and AFP. Samba is also the default used on Windows, so again, you should expect similar speeds. The first test I did was to an unencrypted shared folder using a small 450 megabyte movie file. Copying to the DS418play took about 5 seconds compared to 17 seconds that it took to write to my older device here. When I tried that same file going onto an encrypted shared folder, meaning that the system had to encrypt that file in real time to put it into the drive, it added only a marginal amount of time to the copy here. Took about 7 seconds, while copying to the DS13J, the older device, took 58 seconds, just under a minute there. So you can clearly see the difference in the speed of the hardware acceleration there for encrypting a file. The older and slower ARM-based processor in the 413J is just no comparison at all to the x86-based Celeron processor in here. Next up, I tried a more sustained file copy, a 4.66 gigabytes ISO file, to the unencrypted folder. That took 40 seconds on the 418play and 2 minutes 40 seconds to the 413J, so about 5 times as long. Copying that same 4.6 gigabyte file to the encrypted folder, again found similar results, 47 seconds to the 418play, meaning the actual encryption added very little overhead on top of the normal copying time, while to the 413J it jumped up to about 10 minutes. So again, although this isn't meant to be an empirical comparison between the two, this has slowed down over the years, I can tell you that. The speeds should be representative of what you get to the 418play. And it is also going to depend on the sort of drives that you put in. Obviously, if you stuff this full of really old, very slow drives, then the copy is going to be a lot slower. Finally, let's talk about Plex Media Server. Although Synology do offer their own built-in video station software and mobile clients, Plex is by far the most popular media server around, with clients for all mobile devices, Windows, Mac, and Linux. So I'd really suggest you install that instead and probably just skip their own software. At the time of review, Plex Media Server was not in the Synology App Store. However, it can be installed manually just fine. Just download the right package from the official Plex site for x86 64-bit Synology devices, and it will install and run fine. So in the past, I've struggled with Plex a bit on my home network because I do have it running on here, but it's completely unable to transcode videos. The hardware just isn't powerful enough. And what that means is that watching from a desktop device is generally fine because it will stream the raw media file over your network, and your desktop can probably play whatever movie it is, you generally can't play to smaller mobile sort of devices because they can't always handle the high bitrate files that you might have stored. Transcoding is the process of changing that high bitrate file down to a lower bitrate, perhaps a lower resolution, that can play more suitably or on your thin media client like an Android TV box. So I've always been limited to watching only on desktop and notebook devices from here. Now on the 418 Play, because it has an Intel x86 based Celeron CPU, it fully supports hardware transcoding. In fact, it can handle up to 2 simultaneously 4K media streams. So you can have all of your movies stored on here and watch them on any device basically. So to test this, I used some extremely high bitrate test files from the jellyfish.us site. The first one I tried was the HEVC encoded 140 megabits a second with audio file. And to be honest, that struggled to even play on my Mac Pro. It couldn't decode that, so I wasn't expecting this to either, and as I thought, Plex just wasn't able. It played a few seconds and then it would stutter and just endlessly load. Fair enough, wasn't expecting that to work. So next off, I dropped down to 120 megabits a second H.264 encoded file. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting much better, but it did that like a champ, streamed perfectly to my iPhone. And when I checked the Plex status window, it did indeed indicate that it was using the hardware transcoding. So again, those were really sort of extreme tests. I mean, that was like a 500 megabyte file just for 30 seconds of video. In reality, if you've downloaded a 4K movie, it's rarely going to be bigger than 10 gigabytes, and even that would be at the high end of things. So now we get to the really important question. Should you buy a Synology DS418play? I would say absolutely yes, 10 out of 10 from me. This older Synology 413J has served me so well over the past 4.5 years. It's moved house with me a couple of times. I started, I believe, with a few terabyte drives in there, and it's now been maxed out fully. And again, it's that fantastic Synology hybrid RAID system that has enabled me to upgrade this slowly, just adding in a new 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte drive as the need arises. And that's just not something you can do with other network attached storage devices. They aren't as flexible as that. Over the years, I've actually had a hard disk fail twice in here, and in both times, the system's alerted me by beeping. You can also set up email alerts, and the process of replacing that drive is so simple. You just pull it out and put in a new one that's the same size or bigger, and then rebuild the array. I've never lost any data on it at all. In fact, I've even had a boot disk fail in my main work computer. And because the Time Machine backup was stored on here, I just replaced the drive and then restored over the network and was back at work the next day. This device has served me so well, and I have absolutely no doubt that this one will too. Having one central, reliable storage that's backed up is so important nowadays. You can back up all of your devices, all of your media to one central device and just trust that it'll be safe. On top of that, as I mentioned, it also acts as a really great media server. If you have never heard of Plex, go and look it up now. I guarantee you'll want to download it, and then you'll want to run it on one of these because you can have tons of movies stored there and just play them on any device in your home network. For advanced users, the 418play does represent a pretty big jump from the previous generation. The 416play, it's got double the RAM and supports 2 simultaneous 4K media transcodes as opposed to 1. Now, if you're coming from a much older model like the 413J, as I am, then you will see a massive performance difference. But if you're thinking about upgrading from something like the 416play, you should probably hold out for a few more years. I think that device has a lot more life left in it for you. It's also worth talking briefly about the DS918 Plus, another pro device in the Synology range, which is only about $50 to $75 more than the 418play. So what's the difference between the two? Why would you choose this instead of the 918 Plus? So the 918 Plus starts with 4 gigabytes of RAM, upgradable to 8 as opposed to 2, upgradable to 6, and it has a quad-core CPU as opposed to a dual-core CPU, albeit clocked at a slightly lower frequency. The 918 Plus can also be upgraded with an M2 SSD, and it can be expanded at a later date with a 5-bay drive enclosure if you do need to cram it full of more drives. Probably the most important for advanced users is that the 918 Plus supports virtualization, whereas the 418play doesn't, so it can't run your virtual machines on here. However, the trade-off is that the power consumption of the 918 Plus is roughly double that of this one, and of course it costs a bit more at the start, which you could be spending on another hard drive instead. So personally, I wouldn't be running a virtualization server, and I don't think the extra processing power in the 918 Plus is going to be worth it for me or for most home users, but that might be something to think about. If you do find the 418 Play is getting a bit sluggish, well, you can always opt for the additional memory upgrade. It's absolutely worth the $430 asking price, and for all of the reasons mentioned in this review, I will always choose a Synology branded network attached storage device over any other manufacturer. Anyway, if you fancy winning yourself one of these lovely DS418 plays for yourself, please click on the link in the description to head over to my full review, and you can enter using the widget at the end of that. Alternatively, you'll find all of our current giveaways over at MakeUseOf.com/giveaways. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. Click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. That'll enable notifications, and you'll be the first to find out when we have a new giveaway, technology tutorial, or DIY project. We love giving stuff away to our loyal readers who help make the site what it is. We do roughly 2 giveaways a week, so it's definitely worth subscribing. Thanks for watching, and until next time.